And we're live.
Hi, everybody. This is Masha and Xenia, and this is ValueTokenized podcast. And our guest for today is Alexander Blum, Chief Operating Officer at Two Prime. Alex, you recently broke the news with Bloomberg and CoinDesk features with the launch at Crypto Finance Conference in St. Moritz. Partnership with such players as MTG Ventures and SpiceVC, and we're going to talk about everything of that. But can you briefly introduce yourself and what are you working on at Two Prime?
Yeah, I think, first off, thanks so much for having me. I'm really honored to speaking with the true crypto twins here. um, I think, as a brief background of myself, I've been working in the blockchain space since 2013, originally consulting for venture capital funds that were interested very early on in Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining. And then as the industry matured and evolved, was able to have other opportunities at the World Economic Forum and the Gates Foundation. And I was consulting for some professionals who I think saw ICOs and said, oh, I want to make money really quickly. This sounds great, but saw that in the US that these were regulated security products. And so created a company called Atomic Capital that was both operating as a broker-dealer in the United States and providing compliance and security token software. So one of our clients is a publicly traded biotech company, for example. Learned a great deal from that. And one of the investors in that project is now my business partner, Marc Fleury. And together we've created a company called Two Prime, which is interested in blending aspects of traditional finance with the crypto industry. So essentially, instead of doing these ICOs that take a bunch of money and are applied to, questionable things or maybe things that don't really hold value, instead are taking more of a traditional finance approach, selling a token that then we allocate to a basket of assets and provide market making services with. So hopefully that product will hold value. We expect it to actually list live next week.
Wonderful. And Alex, can you tell us more about the concept of continuous token offering? Because this is one of the most innovative sides of what you're doing. And how continuous token offering is different from utility like ICO or security token offering.
Right. So, I think there's two things to look at is, the way something is financed and then what's done, what you're financing. And so I think to draw a contrast like an ICO, what typically happens is tokens are sold privately in advance at very large discounts. And then the tokens eventually listed publicly, which is sort of akin to an IPO. And then at that time, the private buyers are typically selling the token at, as quickly as possible to get their money back in some kind of return. And there's a great flood of tokens available on the market with no real organic demand. And so at the same time, ICOs, raised an enormous amount of money really quickly. And there's something really powerful about that. And we shouldn't throw out the baby with the bathwater. So the question is, how do you take what worked there, but make it a little bit more sustainable? Or we say, how do you turn that kind of atomic bomb into more of a nuclear reactor? And so for us, what we're doing is instead of selling tokens at a discount to a bunch of random people with misaligned interests, we don't sell any of the tokens privately. Instead, the tokens are listed publicly, and that's everybody enters at the same cost basis so that there's not people that own the token at 10% the price of everybody else that can then sell it and make somebody else a fool. So that's the first part. And so we only release the tokens really slowly over a time horizon of 10 years rather than 10 minutes. And then the funds, rather than applying them to vaporware or supposed developments in the future, we have a network of partners that we use to invest in that are basically a composite of the blockchain industry. So some of those are venture capital funds like Neo Global Capital and Spice VC, lending partners like Babel Finance, and a number of other partners to do with mining and venture capital that we're really excited to announce but can't yet disclose. And so those are the companies that hold value in different ways and allow us to provide support to the price of that token.
And we'll get back to you, the partners, but first I want to ask about the token itself, so the FF micro token. What is it as an asset class? and what will be your first token, because it's not the first token that comes out live on the exchange next week is only the first ones of many. So what those will be?
Sure. So we refer to this as a new class of tokens called a macro token. And this is a store of value that blends kind of aspects of a stable coin with aspects of a Bitcoin. So first and foremost, the price is defined by store of value usage. So people can hold value in it, and supply and demand dynamics will ultimately define that price. On the back end, at the same time, we provide support to the price with a basket of assets and a treasury of cryptocurrency that we can use so that there's always a market available for it. And I think it's exciting because, if there's supply and demand that moves the price from $3 to $6, we can continue to sell tokens into that. But the money doesn't just disappear. It's dedicated to maintaining a stable price. So it's, buying the token is closer to something like a bank deposit, like a true store of value, rather than going to a casino and hoping, you hit it big. This first token is a representative, and the support of that price is defined by a number of liquid and less liquid investments in the blockchain space. So it's a macro support of that industry. However, that same structure and approach can be applied to lots of other industries, and that's really our real interest, is how do we make this useful and meaningful to people in all different industries. And so, my background, I've been in the Peace Corps in the past. I'm very interested in social impact, and so I think creating a token that takes the same dynamic but invests in companies in developing countries and initiatives like that is intriguing to me. Green technology as another token could be one of the ones that we're starting to develop. And I know my partner Marc, and one of the initial reasons that we started this was focused on smart cities, which are often very difficult to fund, even when supported by cities or governments. They tend to still lack for funding sources, even from large companies. So if we could find a way to structure and support that industry as well, it's one of the first use cases we're already in the process of developing.
Thank you. And back to the partners. You have recently announced partnerships with such players as NGC Ventures and one of the first tokenized funds, Spice VC. Can you tell us more about these collaborations?
Yeah.
What are the goals?
Sure. Well, so I think I want to add one thing to what I was just saying, which is, those are the kinds of vertical industries and themes that we're interested in making tokens in, but we're also very openly providing information about the way this is being done, the structure, and the kind of dynamics of a CTO, so that hopefully other people will copy this. And it doesn't have to be just we create this. We're trying to define this new class and show a way where you can support the price of something in a legitimate way while using crypto markets. But we hope that other people steal this idea and use it for whatever is of interest to them. So that being said, back to what we're doing for this first blockchain project, Spice VC and Neo Global are two of our venture capital partners. And so, we're selling a token that needs to hold value as a store of value. And so you can put that into a lot of different things. I can put it in US dollars. I can put it in my grandmother's, pillowcase. But what we're interested in is finding support and partners that are in the industry so that we have aligned interests and also are going to make strong decisions with the value that's being stored. And then hopefully there's some kind of return on it that returns back additional cash flows to that token so that you can avoid inflation. So in the case of Spice VC and NGC, and actually one other really big venture capital fund that everybody would know that I can't yet tell you the name of, essentially when we sell this token, a portion of those funds at our discretion are allocated to these funds. They do their typical investment processes, and then when there's a return from those funds, that goes back into the liquid assets supporting the price of the token and those trading it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, certainly.
So basically, you're planning to bridge this gap, so to say. Sorry if it sounds trivial, but between crypto and the real world, because one of your theses is that the core applications, the killer applications of crypto are financial. And my question is, how does it stand, or does it stand in a way of, crypto adapts that are going for, decentralization? So because sometimes there's this dispute between finance and decentralized world.
Yeah. So I think it's, incredibly interesting because like the government of the world, the primary tool they have other than weapons to control outcomes and protect their power is financial products. And so they're highly regulated, which means that you encounter a lot of conflict or tension when you start to look at them. And really, this is the first time where in global history where people outside of governments have both the tools and power to create money externally. That's a miracle, and has the potential to really change the way power is distributed throughout the world. So I think it's, to us, what's actually been the most interesting, most successful. If you look at, obviously Bitcoin is the most successful decentralized money in the world. Stable coins are something that actually works for people, and ICO fundraising was something that actually on a global stage meant something at scale. Outside of that, it's very hard to point to anything that's really gotten immersion and use beyond that. I think, at the same time, it really wasn't possible to create any sort of blockchain-based technologies outside of money until Ethereum, which was just a couple of years ago. And usually, I think it takes more than just 3 or 4 years to, revolutionize healthcare or supply chain. So I think it's not a question of if those things will eventually work, but when. And so our focus is creating a company today that can make a difference, which tends to be more matured in the financial realm. And I think that those other, I don't know that like we need like an airplane company using like blockchain or like some very niche things. I think that's sort of people trying to apply this overly, because especially as network technologies, like if you have 20 people that care, like you don't really need this giant decentralized network. There's just it's excessive. So that being said, I think that it's a really a great privilege, but also a little bit out of touch of reality to be writing a white paper that's gonna like put your whole supply chain and change the way the world uses healthcare, overnight. Like these are industries and systems with billions and billions of dollars on a global level with unbelievable amounts of regulation that can definitely improve and will improve. And I think blockchain has something to say to it, but it's going to be, I think, in the 10 to 20 year time horizon, not the day after your ICO happens. So I think what we're hoping is to find ways to fund projects, which is a great entry point into different verticals. And then, with stronger funding, you can have more influence and have a more sustainable way to start to impact these different kinds of industries.
And I think I have just one of our last questions for today. Is there anything you would like to share with us? And maybe it's something that you're anticipating in this industry for 2020 or anything else.
Yeah, I want to share everything I've got with you. I think, the like recent flash loan hack on DeFi, I think was not great. I think it kind of was great in that, like, even though there was money taken, like, there's something incredibly powerful about these new ways to create DeFi money that I think are fascinating. Is really starting to, I think the fact that money could be hacked on such a scale and in such a sophisticated way says that there's a tension and something really interesting happening there. And I'm myself learning a great deal about it and very curious about different ways that DeFi can be used beyond just like loans, but how do we enable people to leverage finance without intermediaries? And I think that promise of that is just starting to be delivered and is exciting for Ethereum. I think that, along with the introduction of Ethereum 2.0, which I think is scheduled for May, I think there's going to be a lot of cool stuff going on there. I don't know exactly what, but it certainly has my attention.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alex. I think I have maybe like a dozen other questions that I would like to ask because you're very interesting to talk to. But yeah, I think we're limited in format and time, so we'll say goodbye for now for this time. But I'm sure we'll have you more on our podcast.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for being with us.
And thank you guys so much. I appreciate what you do so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Talk to you soon.